You are 22 years old. On the same Friday afternoon, two people receive the exact same paycheck. After taxes, it comes to $2,184. Neither of them is rich, neither of them is in debt, and neither of them has a trust fund waiting somewhere in the background. They graduated from similar schools, found similar entry-level jobs, and live in the same city. If you met them today, you would never guess that one of them will become a millionaire before turning 45, while the other will spend decades wondering why money always seems to disappear. The difference won't begin with a six-figure salary, an extraordinary business idea, or a lucky investment. It will begin with a purchase so ordinary that almost nobody would notice it. One chooses to buy assets, the other chooses to buy status. At first, their lives look almost identical, but every financial decision quietly builds a system. And systems have a way of shaping the future long before anyone realizes what's happening. Today, we're going to follow both lives over the next 20 years and watch how one small decision slowly grows into a gap measured not in thousands of dollars, but in freedom itself. Age 22. The first purchase. Your first paycheck doesn't feel life-changing. After taxes, rent, groceries, and a few basic bills, there's only a small amount left. Most people think wealth begins when there's extra money to invest. In reality, wealth often begins when you decide what that small amount of money will do before you spend it. Path A, the asset builder. You choose to live with two roommates, even though you could barely afford your own apartment. The kitchen is small, the furniture is old, and privacy is limited. But your housing costs stay low. You drive a reliable used car, ignore the temptation to upgrade, and set up an automatic investment that transfers money into an index fund the day after every payday. It's only a few $100s each month, but you treat it like rent, non-negotiable. You aren't trying to look wealthy. You're trying to become wealthy. Path B, the status buyer. You make a different decision. You lease a modern apartment in a better neighborhood because it feels like the reward you've earned after years of studying. A few weeks later, you finance a brand new SUV. The monthly payments seem manageable, and everyone compliments your new lifestyle. It feels like success, but every upgrade quietly creates another recurring expense. Without realizing it, your income begins working harder for your image than for your future. By the end of your first year, the difference between these two lives isn't dramatic. One person owns a small but growing investment account. The other owns nicer things. From the outside, the second life looks more impressive. From the inside, the first life has already built something far more valuable, a financial system that grows stronger every month. Age 23 to 25. Every raise has a destination. 2 years pass faster than you expect. You've learned your job, become more confident, and your manager finally notices your consistency. At your annual review, both of you receive the same raise. It's an extra $4,800 a year before taxes. Neither of you has become rich overnight, but this is the moment where most financial futures quietly split apart. A raise doesn't just increase your income, it reveals your priorities. Path A, the asset builder. Instead of treating the raise as spending money, you decide that your lifestyle will only grow a little while your investments grow much more. You keep living in the same apartment for another year, negotiate a slightly lower internet bill, and continue driving the same used car. Nearly 70% of your raise is redirected into your investment accounts before it ever reaches your wallet. Around this time, you begin reading about ownership instead of consumption. You learn how businesses create value, why broad market index funds outperform most investors over long periods, and how assets generate income even while you sleep. One Saturday afternoon, you attend a free real estate seminar at your local community center. You don't buy anything that day, but you leave with a new understanding. Wealthy people don't simply earn money, they own things that earn money for them. By your 25th birthday, your investment portfolio has crossed $25,000. The number itself isn't life-changing, but something else has changed. You no longer measure success by what you can buy. You measure it by how much of your income is producing even more income. Path B, the status buyer. Your raise feels like permission to upgrade your lifestyle. The apartment that once seemed luxurious now feels ordinary, so you move into a newer building closer to downtown. The rent increases, but the commute is shorter and the amenities are nicer. You replace your phone with the latest model even though the old one works perfectly, and weekends become more expensive as nicer restaurants, concerts, and spontaneous trips slowly become your new normal. None of these decisions seem irresponsible on their own. In fact, each one feels deserved. The problem is that every upgrade becomes the new baseline. Within a few months, the extra income from your raise has completely disappeared into recurring expenses. When an unexpected car repair arrives, you put it on a credit card and promise yourself you'll pay it off next month. Next month becomes 3 months, and the balance quietly begins collecting interest. By age 25, both of you have earned nearly the same total income over the past 3 years. One has built a growing collection of assets that will continue working for decades. The other has built a lifestyle that requires every future raise just to maintain it. The gap between them is no longer measured only in dollars. It's measured in momentum, and momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal finance. Age 26 to 28. The first asset. By your late 20s, your financial habits begin producing visible results. The choices that once seemed small now create opportunities that simply didn't exist a few years earlier. For the first time, both of you have enough experience and income to make a larger financial decision. Path A, the asset builder. After years of consistent saving, you have enough for a down payment on a small rental property. It isn't your dream home, and it certainly isn't glamorous, but it generates income every month. There are repairs, unexpected maintenance costs, and the occasional late rent payment, yet the numbers still work in your favor. For the first time, you experience what it feels like to earn money without trading your time for every dollar. Path B, the status buyer. Your salary has also increased, but so have your expenses. You celebrate a promotion with an overseas vacation, upgrade your furniture, and trade your leased vehicle for a newer model with a higher monthly payment. When an emergency expense appears, you rely on your credit card because your savings account never had enough time to grow. The debt isn't overwhelming yet, but it has become a permanent part of your monthly budget. By age 28, the difference between these two lives is becoming harder to ignore. One person owns an asset that sends money into their bank account every month. The other owns liabilities that take money out every month. Both worked equally hard. The difference is simply the direction their money has been traveling all these years. Age 29 to 31, when money starts working harder than you. By the time you reach your early 30s, the most important change isn't visible in your paycheck. It's visible in the relationship between your time and your money. Up until now, every dollar you've earned has depended almost entirely on the hours you worked. But after years of repeating the same financial habits, that relationship slowly begins to change. One life is starting to build momentum. The other is working harder just to maintain the same lifestyle. Path A, the asset builder. Your investment portfolio has now grown to a size where market gains become noticeable. There are months when your investments earn more than you personally contribute. And for the first time, you understand what people mean when they say, "Make your money work for you." It's no longer just a motivational quote, it's something you can actually see in your account statements. The rental property continues generating steady cash flow. Some months are better than others. A tenant moves out, a refrigerator needs replacing, and there are weekends spent coordinating repairs. It's far from effortless, but the property continues producing income long after the work is finished. Instead of spending that extra cash, you reinvest it. Little by little, the income from your assets begins purchasing even more assets. When another promotion arrives at work, your lifestyle barely changes. Friends wonder why you're still driving the same reliable car and living below your means even though your salary has increased substantially. The answer is simple. You're no longer trying to increase your standard of living every time your income grows. You're increasing your standard of ownership instead. Every raise buys a larger piece of your future rather than a more expensive version of your present. Path B, the status buyer. Your career has also progressed, and on paper, everything looks impressive. The promotions keep coming, your salary is higher than ever, and people assume you're doing well because your lifestyle reflects your income. The apartment is nicer, the vacations are more frequent, and almost every raise has been followed by some kind of upgrade. But something feels different than you expected. Despite earning significantly more than you did just a few years ago, you don't feel financially ahead. The higher income disappears almost as quickly as it arrives. Bigger rent, higher insurance premiums, newer electronics, subscriptions you barely use, and monthly debt payments quietly absorb nearly every increase in income. Each expense seems reasonable on its own, but together they leave very little room to build lasting wealth. One afternoon, your car needs an unexpected repair costing several $1,000s. You could pay cash if you emptied your savings, but that would leave almost nothing for future emergencies. Instead, you put the expense on a credit card and tell yourself you'll pay it off over the next few months. It feels like a small compromise, yet it's another reminder that your financial life still depends entirely on your next paycheck arriving on time. By age 31, both of you have built successful careers. The difference is no longer how much money you earn, it's how many sources of income you have. One person has begun creating assets that continue producing value long after the work is done. The other still relies almost entirely on selling time for money. That difference may seem small today, but over the next decade, it will become almost impossible to close. Age 32 to 35. The price of an unprepared life. Most people believe wealth is built during the good years, when the economy is strong and paychecks keep getting bigger. But financial systems aren't truly measured by how they perform when life is easy. They're measured by how they respond when life becomes unpredictable. Between the ages of 32 and 35, both of you experience setbacks that nobody could have planned for. The events are different, but the lesson is exactly the same. Path A, the asset builder. One spring, the roof of your rental property begins leaking after a severe storm. A contractor estimates the repair at nearly $8,000. It's an unpleasant surprise, but not a devastating one. Years earlier, you built a maintenance reserve specifically for moments like this. The repair is paid for without touching your retirement accounts or selling your investments. A few months later, the reserve is fully replenished, and the property continues producing cash flow as if nothing had happened. Not long after, your employer announces a company-wide restructuring. Promotions are delayed, bonuses are canceled, and uncertainty spreads through the office. While many coworkers begin worrying about every paycheck, your financial life remains stable. Your investments continue growing, your rental income keeps arriving each month, and your emergency fund gives you enough breathing room to make thoughtful decisions instead of emotional ones. For the first time, you realize that financial security isn't the absence of problems, it's the ability to face problems without losing control. Path B, the status buyer. Your life also seems to be moving in the right direction until unexpected expenses begin arriving one after another. A medical procedure leaves you with thousands of dollars that insurance doesn't fully cover. A few months later, your car requires major repairs just after you've finished paying for a vacation. Without an emergency fund, every solution leads back to the same place. Another credit card, another monthly payment, another promise to deal with it later. At first, you tell yourself it's only temporary. Once things settle down, you'll finally start saving. But before that happens, another expense appears. The debt grows slowly enough that it never feels like a crisis, yet quickly enough that it becomes part of everyday life. You continue working hard, earning promotions, and paying your bills on time, but more and more of your income is spent fixing yesterday's decisions instead of building tomorrow's opportunities. By age 35, the contrast between these two lives has become impossible to ignore. The asset builder still faces unexpected problems, but those problems are temporary. The status buyer faces the same kinds of problems, yet each one leaves a permanent financial scar. The difference isn't luck, intelligence, or income. It's the system each person spent more than a decade building. One system absorbs life's shocks and keeps moving forward. The other turns every setback into years of recovery. Age 36 to 40. Freedom was never about money. By your late 30s, something remarkable begins to happen. The biggest difference between these two lives is no longer measured by income, job titles, or even net worth. It's measured by choices. Wealth was never just about collecting more money. It was about creating the freedom to make decisions without fear. Path A, the asset builder. Your investment portfolio has now reached a point where market growth contributes more each year than some people save through work. The rental properties continue producing steady cash flow, and every mortgage payment quietly increases your ownership. Compound interest, which once felt almost invisible, has become the strongest employee you've ever had. It works every day without asking for a vacation, a promotion, or overtime pay. When your company offers a promotion, you don't immediately say yes. Instead, you ask whether the additional responsibility is worth giving up more of your time. Years ago, that question would have sounded impossible. Back then, you needed every raise simply to stay ahead. Now, your investments cover a meaningful portion of your monthly expenses, giving you something far more valuable than a higher salary, the ability to choose. A year later, your mother requires long-term medical care. The monthly cost is significant, but it doesn't force you into debt or panic. Your rental income covers much of the expense, while your salary continues funding your investments. Helping your family no longer feels like a financial crisis. It's simply another line in your budget. That's what assets eventually buy. Not luxury, but resilience. You still drive a practical car. You still invest automatically every month. From the outside, your life doesn't look dramatically different from 10 years ago. But underneath the surface, everything has changed. Your money has become a team of employees working for you around the clock. Path B, the status buyer. Your career has also progressed, and you've worked hard to get here. Your salary is higher than ever, but so is the cost of maintaining your lifestyle. Every month begins with the same sequence of payments: rent, car payment, insurance, subscriptions, credit cards, and everyday living expenses. By the time those obligations are covered, there isn't much left to build the future. Then, life reminds you that certainty is an illusion. Your company announces layoffs. You're fortunate to find another job a few months later, but the new position pays less than the previous one. Without a substantial emergency fund, your savings disappear quickly. The credit cards return, not because you're irresponsible, but because you simply need time to recover. For the first time, you realize something uncomfortable. You don't actually own your lifestyle. Your lifestyle owns you. It depends on your next paycheck arriving exactly when it's supposed to. At 40, both of you appear successful to the outside world. Both have respectable careers, years of experience, and people who admire what they've achieved. But only one can confidently walk away from a toxic job, take several months off, support aging parents without financial anxiety, or turn down an opportunity that doesn't align with personal values. The greatest return on assets was never the money they generated. It was the freedom they quietly created, one decision at a time. The lesson most people learn too late. Looking back, it's tempting to believe that one person was simply smarter or luckier than the other. But that's not what happened. Neither of them invented a billion-dollar company, picked the perfect stock, or earned an extraordinary salary. They simply repeated different habits for nearly 2 decades. The asset builder understood that every dollar has 2 possible jobs. It can buy something that loses value the moment you own it, or it can buy something that has the potential to produce even more dollars in the future. By making that choice over and over again, wealth became the natural outcome rather than the goal itself. The status buyer made decisions that millions of people make every day. There was nothing reckless about wanting a nicer apartment, a newer car, or memorable vacations. The problem wasn't a single purchase. It was the pattern. Each upgrade increased the cost of maintaining life, leaving less money available to build the future. This is why financial success is rarely decided by one dramatic moment. It is usually decided by hundreds of ordinary decisions that feel too small to matter. The first investment, the first unnecessary upgrade, the first automatic transfer, the first credit card balance that isn't paid in full. Those quiet decisions eventually become the life you wake up to years later. At the age of 22, these two people looked almost identical. They earned the same income, lived in the same city, and believed they had plenty of time to figure things out. If you had met them back then, you probably wouldn't have been able to predict who would become financially free and who would continue living paycheck to paycheck. The truth is, wealth isn't built by one perfect investment or one lucky opportunity. It's built by a system of small decisions repeated long enough for time to amplify them. Every paycheck asks the same question: will this dollar buy a better future, or will it buy a better image? The answer isn't revealed tomorrow or even next year. It's revealed decades later. The good news is that no matter where you are today, your next financial system begins with your very next decision. Because the future isn't created all at once. It's created one paycheck, one habit, and one choice at a time. 20 years from now, you'll be living inside the system you started building today.